แค่ยังจะมีนี่อันนี้ก็มีนี่น้ำมันพิษปุ๊บหัวพญานาคจับได้หมดเลยในปากไม่มัดไหวบอกปากไอ้ที่เห็นมาหน่อยแก้ไปขายอันมังกรนะกล้วยมันเลยต้องหวยบอกแค่รักเสือแค่ยังจะมีนี่อันนี้ก็มีนี่น้ำมันพิษปุ๊บหัวพญานาคจับได้หมดหัวในปากไม่มัดไหวบอกปากมันไอ้ที่เห็นมาหน่อยแก้ไปขายอันมังกรนะ
This is the process, I believe, is what's going on with our radar systems, and the seismicity following along the lines of Yellowstone. I believe that since the radars sit on opposite sides of Yellowstone, that they're able to penetrate them, one acting as a receiver, the other acting as a transmitter, and that's why we're getting these odd signals on the seismographs and increased activity. Also, I believe this same principle is being transferred into fracking, the ability to use the microwave energy, the radio frequencies to move media. If we look at areas that have magnetic principles to them, then they can adapt these radar systems to actually use the magnetic fields that are around naturally occurring in certain areas of the United States. And I believe they're able to move this media instead of using the fracking material. Now that that's being outlawed and people are up in arms with it, I do believe that they're moving to technology to solve this problem because they have so much money invested in it. And I think we're seeing the byproduct of those tests or the application. So if you'd watch this short little video, it'll help explain what I'm talking about. This is from MIT. It's a rather older video, but I was able to come across it, so that's what I'm using in this aspect.
It's a visual evidence for molecular polarization.
They're set in a shallow dish of corn oil, which is then placed in a nitrogen pressure chamber. 25 kilovolts AC is applied. Polarization forces push the fluid upward between the plates. The field intensity is greatest at the left, about 100 kilovolts per centimeter.
The height of rise is inversely proportional to the square of the radial distance.
If you see here, it says electronic field and moving media. Media being any element, mass, fluid. That's what they're discussing there. Okay, in this next video, it's older and we have far better technology now, but bear with me through this and it'll explain another part of the application and another byproduct of the application I believe that they're using now, and it'll better illustrate why we might be hearing these booms and what is going on in our Earth all of a sudden because of the technology that we possess today, on a larger scale, granted. But bear with me on this, and it may help explain a few more things.
Edgerton's boomer illustrates the induction of a current in a conductor subjected to a time-varying magnetic field and the associated magnetic forces. It illustrates the interplay between the laws of Faraday, Ampere, and Ohm that determines the distribution, duration, and magnitude of currents in conductors under magneto-quasi-static conditions. Of a spark gap, which we just heard. We can see it if we open this panel. The switch is closed by a spark across this gap. That spark is activated by applying a voltage to this electrode to make a smaller electrical breakdown in the gap. Just once, we'll bypass the safety interlock that ordinarily disconnects the circuit when the panel is opened. So that you can see evidence of the field that you can't feel firsthand. Let's replace his hand by this wire loop. The wire is open at this point, with the ends barely touching. So the field induced around the contour is concentrated at the gap. We go to a higher f-stop to protect the camera. The integral of the electric field intensity is concentrated in a gap region that is initially relatively insulating. So the electric field intensity between the almost touching wires is enough to produce a spark. The conductivity of this aluminum disc is more than 10 million times larger than for human flesh, and there's no gap to limit the induced current. The force can be used to shape metals. Here, the upward force is evident in the shaping of the outer edge of a foil disc. For this experiment, we used 3 times as much capacitance. If the force can be used to shape the metal, it can also be used to launch the disc. I'm Melcher, and as you know, that's Zahn. We've brought along an illuminary here to push that button finally. This is Professor Doc Edgerton, and it's his machine. What we've done, of course, is to show you this disc. And now, if, Doc, you'd turn on your machine.
Ready? Here we go.
I'm going to step out of this.
I'll turn on the main power. Let it come up to charge. Whee! Want to do it again?
Do you have a favorite one there?
Well, everyone's a little different. Let's try this one. What do you say? Power.
A little different ring to it.
A little different ring.
Now, as I understand it, this thing's got more capacitors in it. Maybe we get Zahn to put a little more in there?
You like to have a little
Yeah, now,
more?
one of the reasons I brought this man along is that, in fact, he mainly paid for this building. So, you see, we don't care too much if we hurt that ceiling.
It'd be nice to have an imprint up there, wouldn't it?
Right. With you here, I can say that.
Okay, let's see what happens this time. Well, you got 3 capacitors on instead of 1. You should go a little higher. 1, 2, 3, go. Whee! Missed me.
Want to try our favorite?
Yeah, let's try that one. Hey, knocked a hole in the ceiling.
Okay.
Well, see, you enjoy that, huh?
Now that illustrates the principles of what I'm talking about. If you'll bear with me through part 2, I'll explain more.
5 years is it's sort of like doing a jigsaw puzzle. Now, back in the 50s and 60s, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have a lot of things that people have today. We did jigsaw puzzles. And to do a jigsaw puzzle, you just dump everything out of the box and you turn everything upright so you can see that. And then you start finding the flat edges. And I used to do a lot of jigsaw puzzles, and I could do them really, really quick. There was a challenge that I had, is to do a jigsaw puzzle without looking at the box. Say the box was a barn with a little pond and 2 people there and the blue sky and the white clouds, etc. Well, looking at the box, you could pick up a piece and put things in. This whole thing that I've been doing is like doing a jigsaw puzzle. I'm putting pieces in and seeing the picture of the future of the United States, the future of the world, based upon all the facts and the information that have been given to me. And in the process of doing this, I began having these thoughts in my mind. Well, this is probably going to happen, and that's going to probably happen. And when those things did, as I saw the picture clear, I didn't think of myself as a prophet in the way that people think of prophets today, like a religious prophet or even Nostradamus and quatrains and all this sort of stuff. I just thought, man, I'm putting things together, and I can see into the future by just having a huge amount of information. The way that I've always described is like a weatherman. A weatherman can predict, let's say, they can say 3 days from now, we're going to have severe weather outbreak because this warm front with this moist air is going to meet with this cold front, etc. 72 hours later, perfectly sunny and 70 degrees and nothing even looks like potentially be bad. He's predicting the future. And I think that we all can look into the future a bit by looking at all the pieces of the puzzle, putting as many in as we possibly can, and we can see the future. We really can see into the future. I've spent 35 years doing this research, hundreds of thousands of dollars, traveled all over the world. Oh, my God. It's just, the most unbelievable information. I bet everybody listening to my voice right now knows there's, in the back of their mind, they might not want to think about it, but they know there's something innately wrong that's going on in the United States and in the world. And what they don't want to have is no choices. Just like in Germany or all of Europe, there were rumors about what was going on. There were people going, I'll never leave my home, my family, etc. There got to be a point in time where it got so bad that it was life and death. It was a choice of life and death. And people that waited too long, they got caught behind the lines. Paper, please. Well, you don't have your papers, you never got out. We all have some sort of insurance, whether it's insurance for our automobile just in case we're in a car accident, or we might have, let's say, candles and a flashlight in the house just in case electricity goes off. But it may never go off, but we still have them. We might have a gun in the house to protect our wife and children and daughter from being raped or an intruder or something like that. We might have freeze-dried food just in case martial law is called or something goes bad at the grocery store, right? We have insurance. Well, this information is truly life and death. Maybe people would get this information and they would never use it, just like buying a cookbook and never actually making one of the recipes. I think most people have done something like that. But if this is the most important information when it comes to life and death, when it comes to surviving what I call the next 5 to 15 years on this planet, a lot of things that are coming down in a prophetic sort of way, all the world's religions, all of them, I've studied them in depth, have a sort of what we'll call an end-time scenario. And almost all of them have very similar bloodbath, massive amount of death on the planet scenarios before the Messiah returns or the Imam Mahdi, which is just in an uproar over in Iran right now, or the Lord Maitreya in the fifth Buddha, Christ coming back, Jesus coming back, the Messiah coming back for the Jews. All these scenarios are coming into play here, and And there are the potential for war, the potential for disease epidemics, the potential for famine and starvation, and huge amount of natural disasters, and ruthless governments taking away our freedoms and our right to have a, let's say, high quality of life. And I think that this information gives people what they would know in the back of their mind. I know where I'd need to go. I know why I'd want to go there. For every one person that left Europe, 21 stayed put and died in World War II. 79 million people died in World War II. I know a lot of people that are hunkering down. But this is my mindset, and I know this. I don't want to come across any way, shape, or form just being arrogant. But this is what I believe. Let's say we're on the Titanic. We've been given this unbelievable spiel about this ship, okay? I mean, there's nothing in the world that's ever been built like it, etc. It's unsinkable, it's this, it's that, the other. The moment it hits the iceberg, there's probably only a few people on the entire Titanic that really know what's going to happen in the next few hours. They know for sure, 100% sure, that it's going to be at the bottom of the North Atlantic, deep, deep down there. Now, we've heard this story about, people rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. If, let's say, nautical engineers knew for sure that the Titanic was going down, we have hindsight because we know the Titanic, but if we knew for sure, all the people saying, let's go bail water, let's take a boat, let's just wait and see, we gotta protect the Titanic. I mean, this is the Titanic. It's not going down. I mean, this is too big to go down, right? We got to save the Titanic. All these sorts of things, we're going, you bet you don't understand. We have X amount of minutes. We got to get people in the lifeboats. We got to get off of this ship. It's going down. People looking at us and going, you're abandoning ship? You're a chicken. You're yellow. You're a coward. You can't. They told us it can't possibly sink. And you're going, but I know for a fact it is. Now, 35 years of research. I've researched so much. I really do believe that the United States has been targeted by the globalists to be taken out. They just have. The United States, as much as I love the United States and as much as I have a huge amount of feelings for the United States, we're right now the big bully on the playground. We can kick sand in anybody's face. We can kick any of the kids off of the swing set that are smaller than us, etc. But to have a global governance, a new world order, to have the type of system they want in the world, you can't have one big, huge bully going around invading countries and assassinating people and killing people. You have to have this equal group of nations. I believe the United States is targeted, and I believe exactly what these people that do control the economies and global events in the world, they have targeted the United States for destruction. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And so I believe that you can hunker down here if you want to, and there will be a few people that will survive, but I believe 90% of the people in the United States that are alive today that stay here will be dead in the next 5 to 15 years. I absolutely am convinced of it. Well, let's take the planet that we live on and really do look at it. Let me give you some absolute flat-out statistics. This is absolute fact. 90% of the world's population lives in the northern hemisphere. 10% of the world's population lives in the southern hemisphere. 95% of all the pollution generated in the world is generated in the northern hemisphere and does not cross the equator. That's called the Coriolis effect. All the air and all the water, like we're talking 99%, stays in its perspective hemisphere. It does not cross the hemisphere. Think about it. 5% of the world's pollution is in the southern hemisphere, but it's half of the planet. 85% of the world's rainforests that clean the air, that provide oxygen, are in the southern hemisphere. It's only happened to clean out 5% of the world's pollution. Climates in the northern hemisphere are much more severe than the southern hemisphere. Any global climate change in the southern hemisphere, global climate change doesn't change much of anything. Severe changes in the northern hemisphere. There is so many people in the northern hemisphere. There are tensions, war. There's fighting over the few resources. It is completely different. In the southern hemisphere, it is quiet, tranquil, peaceful, other than a few places in southern Africa. It is a completely different way of life. And if you have another Fukushima or you have a nuclear war, all that is going to generate in the northern hemisphere. None of that. Radiation, those isotopes, whether it's iodine-131 or uranium or plutonium or strontium, none of that crosses the equator and goes to the southern hemisphere. So if there's nuclear war between the United States and China, the United States and Russia, or Pakistan, things start getting out of hand, Pakistan, India, whatever, all that's going to circulate in the northern hemisphere. 15 years ago, I moved my wife and my two